The moment this ball dropped through the stone ring, someone was about to die. For almost 3,000 years, across what's now Mexico and Central America, that was a real, possible outcome of a game, and it connects directly to something happening right now. While the World Cup plays out across the United States, Mexico, and Canada, almost nobody watching realizes that football's ancient ancestors sometimes settled its biggest matches with an execution instead of a trophy. Today, we're going to figure out exactly how that worked, and why people are still debating who actually had to pay the price when the game ended. This is the first video in a series digging into the darkest side of sports history, and it starts right here. If you like uncovering these wild ancient realities with me here on Pixelated Past, hit subscribe and like button. Let's start with how old this actually is. Long before anyone laced up a boot, people across Mesoamerica were playing a game with a solid rubber ball, using only their hips, forearms, and knees. No hands, no feet allowed. Archaeologists have found ballcourts dating back around 3,400 years, and most historians agree the sport was already widespread almost 3,000 years ago, which makes it one of the oldest team sports ever recorded, older than almost anything we'd recognize as organized sport today. It didn't stay small either. Over 1,500 ballcourts have been found spread from what's now Arizona all the way down to Nicaragua. The people who probably invented it, the Olmec, were nicknamed the Rubber People because of how much latex they harvested from the region's rubber trees. The Maya called the game pits. The Aztecs called it Ōllamaliztli. And here's a small twist, the name most people know today, Pok-ta-Pok, isn't ancient at all. It was coined by a Danish archaeologist back in 1932. So even the popular name for a 3,000-year-old game is probably younger than your grandparents. Now picture actually standing at one of these courts. You're in a narrow stone alley, walls rising up on either side, and a crowd is packed along the top. For most people, this wasn't a solemn ritual, it was entertainment and serious gambling. Spectators bet jewels, fine cloth, even their own freedom on the outcome. Players wore thick belts and padding around their hips, because the ball itself was solid rubber, dense and heavy enough to bruise bone, and the whole point was to keep it moving using only your body, never your hands. Whistles, drums, and conch shell horns marked the start and end of play. For the vast majority of people who played this game across those 3,000 years, it ended exactly like you'd expect any game to end, with a win, a loss, and everyone walking home. But there's a version of this game where walking home wasn't guaranteed, and that's the part everyone's really here for. On stone carvings at sites like Ōllamaliztli and the Great Ballcourt at Chichen Itza, there are graphic reliefs showing a kneeling player, decapitated, blood pouring from his neck. And here's the twist historians still argue about. We genuinely don't know for certain if that's the winner or the loser. Some experts think being sacrificed was considered an honor, a direct promotion to godhood, which would mean the winning captain paid the price. Others think the real victims were war captives, forced into a rigged, ceremonial version of the game where losing simply confirmed a fate that was already decided before the first point was scored. Most historians today think both situations happened, in different places and different times, and that the specific outcome mattered less than the symbolism underneath it. On that Chichen Itza carving, the blood doesn't just spill. It turns into 7 serpents that grow into plants, and that image tied directly into the Maya creation story, the Pok-ta-Pok, where the hero twin's own father is lured to the ballcourt of the underworld and decapitated by the lords of death, his head hung in a tree, only for that death to eventually spark new life. This wasn't random violence, it was a sport built to reenact death and rebirth, with a rubber ball standing in for the sun crossing the sky every single day. Quick break, we're going to be unearthing a lot more of the brutal, forgotten origins of the games we play today. If you want to see the rest of this series, hit subscribe. Alright, back to the game. This year's World Cup is being co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The opening match was played in Mexico City, a city built directly on top of Tenochtitlan, the old Aztec capital, which had its own ballcourts and its own version of this exact ritual game centuries before a single modern goal was ever scored there. Out in the city's main square, there's now a massive fan festival, packed with people cheering for their teams, standing in roughly the same spot where ancient crowds once gathered to watch a game that could end in celebration or in sacrifice. But if you think humanity's bloodlust for ball games stopped in the jungles of the Americas, you are dead wrong. 1,000 years later, in the pitch-black mud of medieval Europe, an even more out-of-control, 100-man riot was brewing. One so violent that the King of England feared it enough to ban it by law. Stay with me to see how medieval football almost tore a kingdom apart.